but we were at a house that was way up in the hills, and it was like they had a big fire set up. There's like an altar up there, and I remember they had a little boy and a little girl up there. They were tortured. They were maybe 4 or 5 years old, and they were burning them with stuff, and they'd cut their wrists and their feet, the bottoms of their feet open, and they're collecting the blood. And these kids, it's still there for some of those kids screaming. I was up in Classic, and we went down to Newburgh to party one time, and when I was down there, I was at this guy named Willie's apartment, his Uncle Ralph's apartment, and we were all partying over there. And there's some people that I'd never met or hung out with before showed up over there. We went to this guy named Damien's house, which Damien's nickname was 666.
Well, take me down to the place. Have you been back here since? Okay, you did all right?
Yeah. And the one guy, I don't even know his name, but he'd said that he owned the 2 girls that were there. And I thought he meant like he was their pimp or something. And he kept asking if I wanted to buy one of them. And, like to rent her? No, to buy it. You want to buy her. Like you can own her. And I couldn't really grasp it, like how do you just buy somebody else? It didn't make sense to me. This is the house that the dope was bought at. I sat right there for about 45 minutes waiting for Mike to come out, and he took so long, and I was so sketched out that I took off, and I made it down to about here, and I saw him running down the street behind me, waving his arms, jumping up and down. So I stopped, he ran up the car, got in. We proceeded to go back to Willie's uncle's house, well, his apartment. And then we got there, and everybody was getting high and stuff, and there was just regular like partying going on. And I snorted a bunch of crank, and about 15 minutes later, everything started getting really weird. Like, just, like, weird. Like, it just felt weird. Like, they gave me something that was not crank. And they took me over to this guy, Dennis's apartment, which was only like 2nd or 3rd time I'd ever met this guy. And that's when I was sitting there, and I was like, man, why are you guys doing this? And he just looked me straight in the eyes and says, to let Satan have his night of rain. Then Willie got mad, like, don't say that, you're gonna, mess. And so then I don't remember. Like, the next thing I really recall is at that point when the next thing I recalled was just being led back into the apartment, and it was just so weird the way, they're like leading me, like, and kind of like babying me and stuff. And then the 2 girls stripped me down and put me in the shower. And they were washing me, and I remember I was covered from head to toe in blood, and I kept asking, I'm looking down and the water's just pink, just cascading down me, and I kept asking him, like, why am I bleeding? And don't worry, it's not your blood. It's not your, and, well, whose blood is it? Don't worry about it, and so they got me washed up, and, I'm pretty much in I'm pretty sure I was in shock at this point, but, I had no recollection of what had gone on, but I just had a feeling in my spirit, like, I don't even know if it was in my spirit, but I just knew I had to get out of there. And they put me in the bedroom, and they locked the door from the outside with a padlock on it. And the window in the bedroom also had a lock on it, with like a smaller padlock. And locked me in this bedroom right here. And then I broke out of the window. I popped it, they had a lock on it. I pulled as hard as I could, and I remember it shot up, it hit the ceiling, ricocheted over and hit the closet door, and then I could hear them fumbling, trying to get the padlock that they had on the outside of the door open, and I dove through the window and ran down the alley. But I somehow made it out to the street and all the way across the vacant, the whole lot that was vacant, and into a church parking lot. And I went to the church doors and tried to get in, and it was locked up. It was 4 or 5 in the morning, and it was early Sunday mornings. What I will explain here in a little bit happened Saturday night, and so there was a van parked in the parking lot there. I had to hide. I knew I had to hide because I was running from him, and I jammed my fingers up under here, which I have no idea how I did it, and I just pulled, and the window shattered, and then I just crawled through the window. I said that was early Sunday morning, and everybody shows up to go to church the next day, and I believe the pastor showed up before anybody else and saw the broken window, so we called the police, and they came to, I woke up to the police outside the van. Well, it looks like they were trying to steal parts, and so at which point I sat up in the front seat and was promptly arrested. And so when I was being taken to jail, I guess it was my friend Bubba's cousin Mark that was the arresting officer, and he said that I kept babbling about dead kids, and I didn't, at that point, I didn't really have any recollection. I got out of jail, and I went and got my car, and it was a couple of days that everything started kind of coming back to me, and I thought I was crazy for a long time, because that's not normal stuff that happened to someone. It was just like hit me like a wave, and I remembered what had been done, and I'd been taken to, I don't know where we were at. I don't know how we got there, but I remember there was a pretty good sized group of people. I'd say between 30 and 50 people that were there. And the place that we're at was, you could tell, just, it was one of their regular spots, like just the way that the grounds were kept and the whole setup of it, like they had a big fire pit down below, and then there's like 2 sets of stairways like that went up on the sides, and then they had a big altar up there, and they had a little boy and a little girl chained down the altar, and they were torturing them, and they'd stab them. I remember they were cutting the bottoms of their feet open, and just the noises that these kids made, and the smell, like I'll never forget that. And just the torment and the torture they put these kids through. And like, you've talked with, a lot of people that have been through stuff like this. Like, how do most people, like, cope with this stuff? Because I kept this inside for years, until I came back to Ohio and told you guys about it. I think it only told like maybe 4 people in my life, because I was so ashamed of it, like, I was so ashamed that I didn't do anything to help those kids. But, how? What do you do?
A lot of people split. A lot of people become drug addicts. A lot of people, they do a lot of things. A lot of people don't get help because there's not enough help.
finally and whatnot. And then after that, they took the kids off, and they were eating parts of them and stuff, and then they took me down in like a basement room, and they had the two little kids laying on like a table deal, and they were laying there just, you know, just looking all grotesque. And they told me, you know, like, if you ever tell anybody about this is what your family's gonna look like. And then I remember I was in just a big circle of people, and I was crawling around on my hands and knees, and, you know, I was naked, and they were urinating on me and throwing feces on me, and I was covered in blood, and I just remember crawling around just begging them to stop and please, you know, and they just kept going, you know. And then the next thing I know is they're leading me back into Willie's uncle's apartment, and then they put me in the shower, you know. But it just, you know, I don't know where we were, you know. I just know that that night, you know, pretty much ruined my life for a long time. And I know, like, anybody that's involved in Satanism, anybody that's been abused, the only thing that's going to help you is Jesus. Jesus Christ is the only thing that will help you and take the hurt away and take the pain out. The only thing that works is Jesus.